Welcome once again to the Night Wolf Temple. Today is Monday, February 10th, 2025, and I will be reading a card for the day for you from one of my favorite tarot decks. It is the Tabula Mundi Tarot by Meleen, and this deck is inspired by the Thoth deck by Aleister Crowley. And as you can see on the back, there's a very cool graphic, which is supposed to represent Kether in Malkuth, or the magical expression of as above, so below. And you see the duplicated image. But let's get right down to the card, because we're going to have a lot to unpack. This deck is chocked full of symbolism, full of esoteric knowledge. Okay, the card for today is the Queen of Swords. Let's unpack what's on this card. So the first thing we see is Queen of Swords, or Water of Air. And you'll see that on the card there is a female figure with a sword in her right hand, and she's holding a severed head in her left hand. Additionally, on the card, you see a cherub above her, a cherubic figure. You also see scales or balances on her wings, and on each of the scales is a coin, and in that coin is a serpent eating its own tail, the Ouroboros. And then behind her, or actually what it looks like, is she's seated on a tripod, which is a reference to the Oracle of Delphi, who would be seated upon a tripod such as that. I think the sword and severed head is probably a reference to Judith and Holofernes, if you're familiar with the painting of Judith and Holofernes. The story is that Judith was a Jewish widow and Holofernes was an Assyrian general. And to save her people, she snuck into his tent at night and cut off his head. So a lot of interesting symbolism in this card. And I would recommend, if you check out this tarot deck, there's a great book called Book M. Libra Mundi, also by the creator of this deck, M. Meleen. And it goes into a lot of detail about what this card means. But both M. Meleen and Aleister Crowley refer to the Queen of Swords as the liberator of the mind. And the Judith and Holofernes reference would definitely be that of a female liberator. This card is also tied closely to Libra, as reflected by the scales. So there's a lot of balance in this card. To me, this card is oftentimes the court cards in the tarot deck are representative of a specific person. So in this case, this would be a female intellect. So a female intellectual liberator, someone who is not necessarily liberating someone in the physical world, but on the plane of the intellect, and bringing, perhaps as water of air, emotional intelligence into the sphere of the intellect. There is a lot to unpack on this card. The balance scales also are a reference to the balancing the pentacles. The discs would be representative of the pentacles, and in fact, M. Meleen references the 10 of Pentacles as the shadow card of the Queen of Swords. The fact that she is sitting on the tripod is a reference to the Oracle of Delphi, who would sit on a tripod, and it's also a reference to the Three of Swords as well. And of course, the liberator of the mind, the Oracle, someone who is tapping a higher knowledge. And she also has an angelic wing to imply that there is some sort of divine or angelic aspect to this person. So I would think of a professor, perhaps a professor of the humanities. I would think of psychologist, someone along that nature, as this being representative of this card. Perhaps a politician, a thought leader. If it's a reference to someone external, and if it's a reference to internal, then this is really the highest female court card, representing power and representing balance inside the sphere of intellect, or inside the sphere of the court cards. Some other names for the card are the Queen. Let's see if I can find this. The Queen of Sylphs and Sylphids, which are references to mythological creatures. On the Rider-Waite card, I think the cherub at the top of the card is somewhat of a little cheeky reference to the Rider-Waite card, because on the Queen of Swords throne in the Rider-Waite, there is a cherub on the throne. So I think this might be somewhat of a little cheeky reference to that. And let's see, anything else? Waite had a lot of negative connotations to this card, such as widowhood, absence, sterility, mourning. But I think in the Thoth deck and in the tarot, Tabula Mundi Tarot, some of that negative consequence is really taken away, and this is a very powerful card. In fact, I would highly recommend, if you like this deck as I read from it, to get the Liber Mundi. I also wanted to mention that Susie Chang and Meleen have a wonderful podcast on the tarot called Fortune's Wheelhouse. I'm not sure if it's still actively being made, but I highly recommend it. If you're interested at all in the Rider-Waite-Smith tarot deck, or in the Thoth tarot deck, and you want just a crash course in it, check out that podcast. It's called Fortune's Wheelhouse, and I listened to it years ago and really enjoyed the in-depth discussion. I will tell you, just from listening to hours of Meleen speak about tarot, she does know her stuff. And that's why when I do these readings from her deck, it's almost a daunting challenge. Inevitably, I'm going to leave out a ton of information. The card for the day is the Liberator of the Mind. So, as who is it? George Clinton said, "Free your mind, and your butt will follow." Maybe that's the simplified message for the day. So anyway, take this card, go liberate your mind today. And thank you for attending the temple. It's been a pleasure to read your card for the day. And if you like my one card readings, my daily card readings, card of the day readings, please go ahead and like and subscribe to the channel. Like the video, subscribe to the channel. I'll be here tomorrow with another reading, and I think I'm going to start making Tuesdays Tolkien Tuesdays, and I'll be reading from the Lord of the Rings tarot deck. That seems to be the favorite, just based on the number of views I've had. So we'll do Tolkien Tuesdays, and tomorrow we'll be reading from the Lord of the Rings deck. Thank you again for attending the temple, and have a blessed Monday.